computer. Okay, good morning. This morning we've got Dyspraxia chats with the Growing Club, and we're really excited about it. And the reason we've decided to do it, I'll tell you a bit about the Growing Club in a minute. The reason we've decided to do it is I saw something on LinkedIn. A woman had done a survey asking people, neurodiverse people, why they don't tell their employers about the neurodiversity. And for most of them, they were worried it would harm their job development. And then another large group were concerned about backlash. Whereas I am absolutely loving having a team, a neurodiverse team. I flipping love it. And I wanted us to have an opportunity to see like what it's like for us and what gets in the way, what things we might want to change, and just to celebrate how wonderful we are, because we are. Okay, so let's first of all introduce ourselves. We'll start with you, Megan, then you, Isabella.
So my name's Megan. I've been working at the Growing Club for just under 6 months now. And I moved to Lancaster from Leeds, where I did an undergrad in sustainability and environmental management. I got diagnosed with dyspraxia whilst doing my undergrad, which has kind of helped me to understand what kind of challenges, why the challenges that I faced them, and how to then work with what I've got. And yeah, I'm really happy. I'm really happy to be here and to be able to chat about this as well. So that's a bit about me, and I'm excited to talk about this.
And thank you, Megan. Sorry, the dog is joining in. I'm going to mute me, and Izzy, you, and then when you're done, Nicola. Thank you.
Hiya, I'm Izzy. So I've worked like on and off with you guys for a few years. I also work with, I've actually just started managing a social enterprise kitchen in Manchester. So it's like a pay-as-you-feel cafe, which is something that I was wanting to do in the future as well. So I'm doing that here in Manchester. I got diagnosed with dyspraxia when I was in early high school, I think year 7 or 8 or something. And I think at first, like, I really didn't identify with it. Not that I couldn't see that I do all of those things and that I am clumsy and like act like that, but I just kind of didn't really want to like identify with it for a while. And now I definitely have done, and it definitely like has an impact on us like consistently, you know, like every day. But yeah, it's like you say, Megan, it's like learning them different strategies and coping mechanisms to keep yourself like on pace. So yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. And Nicola?
So I am 53. I have got 7 basically grown-up children, and I run a wellness business called Exhale, where we do massage and meditation and yoga, and I train for the Growing Club as a trainer. And I have never been for a formal diagnosis, but once people work with me, I've never met anyone who hasn't thought I was dyspraxic. And it actually is only in the last few years that I've started to be a little bit more compassionate with myself about, because I'm always beating myself up. I wish I was more organised. I wish I hadn't fallen over in front of that group of people. I wish I hadn't dropped that or broken that, or I wish everything about my life wasn't chaotic. And now I could just kind of go, do you know, I think it's the way my brain is wired, and I'm just going to have to work around it rather than just constantly thinking, why do I never get any better at these things? There's certain things to do with executive function that I never improve at, no matter how much I pay attention to improving at them. So yeah, that's where I'm at in my journey at the moment.
Brilliant, thank you. And I'm Jane Binion, and I'm founder and MD of the Growing Club. And the Growing Club designs and delivers employment and enterprise training for women, and we're based in Lancaster. I was, have I been diagnosed? Oh yeah, finally, I was diagnosed as a non-specific learning difficulty when I was doing my MBA. But I realised I was dyspraxic when my daughter was diagnosed with dyspraxia, because when her teacher said to me, I think she's dyspraxic, I went, no, she's just like me. And then luckily we had the internet, and we checked out. It's like, oh, okay. And that I was about 47 or something at that point, and had struggled. But as a youth and community worker, I remember someone saying that I'm eccentric, which I was surprised about. I didn't know I was eccentric. And then I had a boss who wanted to discipline me over my handwriting, which now cracks me up at the times, just did my head in a bit. So yeah, I was late to the party, but that isn't really unusual, I think, for women of our age. I'm 59 now. The good thing is that I'm the boss, and therefore I celebrate it. I'm now in a position where I can just go, it's brilliant, we want more of this. For anyone that doesn't know what dyspraxia is, I actually did some preparation this morning. Yay. And I Googled it, and this is actually on the NHS website. It's also called development coordination disorder, and I'm not entirely happy with that definition, but there you go. I mean, that's part of it. And the symptoms, I've only got one hand to do that with, sorry. Abnormal posture, balance and movement issues or gait abnormalities, poor hand-eye coordination, fatigue, trouble learning new skills, organisation and planning problems, difficulty writing or using a keyboard, having a hard time with grooming. By that, I think they mean personal care. To me, grooming is something completely different now, and household chores. So for those of us that are rubbish at housework, that's it. There you go. But for me, it's just like, that's a really interesting list. And I just want to know what it is for you. So just chip in. What is dyspraxia for you? I can choose you, or you can just jump in.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I think it is living in a world where people effortlessly systematize, organize and plan, and seem to be able to see the future and how the future is going to pan out, and trying to fit into that world where I have an inability to pack or plan or prepare, an inability to systematize no matter how much I try. In fact, the more I try, the more if I try too hard on one thing, all the other things go to pot. Actually, I'm often looking in awe at people who seem to be able to keep these things under control, including things like personal grooming. You know, if I pay too much attention to the lecture I'm going to be giving that evening, I get there and realize I didn't brush my hair and things like that. It's very hard to have. I'm actually in awe of people who can do all those things, manage to do the full hair and makeup and prepare the content of what they're going to present and arrive with all the correct things. It's very difficult for me to ever understand how people do that. So it's kind of watching the world think, and all the people who are neurotypical, I'm thinking, wow, that's quite extraordinary that people can spin those plates. That's how I find it. And I have little things like, I've never managed to give a talk or presentation without having spilt coffee on myself just before I go on. And the more I try not to, things like that, the more it becomes an issue and I end up spilling coffee on myself. Or I don't spill coffee on myself, but I've forgotten all the things I was supposed to bring to that particular event. And so I think it's just constantly saying to myself, work with your own system. build your own system that works for you, and leave everybody who seems to be able to do everything to their own devices and just do your little systems.
Brilliant. Izzy, would you like to go next? What for you, what is dyspraxia?
So definitely the personal grooming, I understand, like especially when I was a bit younger, I kind of had to make myself like a bit obsessive with it for a year to kind of like build it into my routine. But I hated having a shower, I didn't brush my hair, I forgot to brush my teeth, like everything. That was really, really difficult for me. And now it's like, that's been something that I like you say, Nicola, like some things it feels like you can just work at them and work at them and work at them, and like just nothing happens, which is really frustrating. But this is something that I've been able to kind of like, I just got quite obsessive with it, like showering 2 or 3 times a day and like brushing my hair all the time and stuff. And now I've kind of like managed to get it more into my routine, like not perfectly, but that's something I definitely found really hard. And something that I find really difficult is like, I think people feeling like you don't care about things, maybe because of the way that you like present something or present yourself or something, like, or say someone gives you something and you lose it. I think it can look like really careless to people, and like you don't care about, you know, you don't appreciate and certain things, or like what they're doing for you and stuff. And like that really breaks my heart, because I don't want to make people feel like, you know, I couldn't be bothered to make an effort for something because I've just spilled, you know, food down myself or coffee down myself or something. And then the other thing is definitely like tiredness. Like I get really, really tired out of nowhere. I get knackered. And volume control as well. I start shouting sometimes without realizing, and I only realized recently that's also a symptom of dyspraxia, as well as like a couple of other things. But they're my main things.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you. I grew up with damaged ears, and so I always thought, I guess we all thought, my balance and my loudness was related to my ears being damaged. Yeah, so I think I'm learning about those things as I go. Megan, what is it for you?
For me, I really related to a lot of what you just said with not worrying that people think that I don't care about things because I'll just lose something. A lot of what dyspraxia is to me is really having to stay on top of my organization, because if anything starts to slip, then I don't know where I'm at in my life. I have to keep a very formal routine in the morning, otherwise I will not make it to work. I have to I've started a bullet journal. If I don't plan out my week on a Sunday, I don't know what I'm doing that week. I have to really try extra hard with my organization to keep on top of my life. And I think dyspraxia is, to me, finding ways to make it work. So I know what my challenges are, and I know what I need to do to mitigate them. So I just make sure I do them, and I make sure that I give myself the time to do them as well, because I know that I'm capable of doing anything I kind of set my mind to. It's just sometimes that might take a bit longer, and that's fine. It's taken a while to kind of realize that that's fine, but I think just also being around other people who are neurodivergent has really helped me. Also, dyspraxia to me is like being able to blitz clean the whole house in one day, but then losing your keys the next morning. So being late for work anyway. I don't understand how it works. And I think that's another thing. It's so complex that it's hard to even understand how your own brain works. But it does, and it can be a blessing as well. So that's what I think.
Yeah, all those things. For me, fatigue, I think that was one of the things I learned, because I kind of was living life at 100 miles an hour, and then I crashed. Then, you know, do it again and crash, and do it again and crash, just with exhaustion. And when I learned that for people, for dyspraxics, it's 3 times harder for us to do anything ordinary. I may not have said that very well, but just like standing up takes a lot of hard work for us because of our balance. So we're constantly using more energy, and I have really had to learn to manage my energy much better, and pace myself much more, to avoid the crashes, the exhaustion. Yeah, I think my messiness drives me mad. That really, I'm lucky enough, I earn enough money that I have a cleaner come in, and I'm so grateful because she tidies me up and cleans the place, and then I've got another week to make it all messy again, and she's just so great. And luckily she thinks it's about me being intelligent, which is great. I love her for that. But really interesting. I'm looking at us all here, and I think it's quite unusual to have 4 women on a Zoom with no makeup. I'm assuming you haven't got makeup, and I love that. That's beautiful for me. It's really beautiful. I remember many times women, probably women who sell makeup, have said, you should wear makeup, you should make the most of yourself. And I think making the most of myself is using my skills, not colouring me in, surely, isn't it? So anyway, so I've never got the hang of colouring me in. If you do that, lovely, go for it. But it's just never work. And also, if I wear mascara to that and end up with panda eyes and things, I just find it easier not to. And I don't like the feel of it, actually. The feeling is an issue for me as well. Some touches and things. But there's a whole load of things for me missing from that list. Like, what is dyspraxia? It's creativity. It's looking at the world differently. It's brilliant. There's a whole load of things like, why have they only said those things? Why haven't they said how, that joined up thinking that we do, that way that we look at the world, where, to me, like racism, homophobia, sexism is just illogical. It is illogical. That oppressive behavior just makes no sense to me. What people get out, I mean, I get what people get out of it, but to be oppressive based on people's skin color or who they love just makes no sense to me whatsoever. What are your thoughts around the things that should be on this list?
I saw a documentary the other day on human nature sometimes follows the crowd. So if you see someone being beaten up or picked on, this documentary was saying that in psychology, people just look at everybody around them and follow what they're doing. And I thought to myself, I don't think Dyspraxics do. I think if they were showing, the example it gave was, they showed it was fake. They showed a man snatching a child from the street, and then they got somebody to walk past and ignore it. And so everybody else did. Nobody chased the person, because we read the room and we follow the crowd. And I just thought to myself, I do genuinely believe a dyspraxic person constantly is thinking outside the box and would have just chased the guy. They wouldn't have even checked. They wouldn't have thought to check what the crowd was doing. They would have chased the guy. And that's my genuine belief, that I think we constantly assess the situation and think, what's the right thing to do in this situation? I'm just going to do it, because we forget to even look what the crowd's doing. So
yeah, I agree with that. And actually, I looked up the definition of neurodiversity, and it said it just simply means someone who thinks differently to the majority. And we need more of that, right?
Yeah.
Megan, any thoughts for you on what is missing from that list?
I don't know, because I related to a lot of what was on that list, but I think it doesn't, it's hard to find any of the positives when you're just looking at what dyspraxia is on the internet. And I find that really sad, because people who have neurodiversities are usually drawn to other people who are neurodivergent. And I look at all my friends who are like dyspraxic, have ADHD and things like that. And although it is a disability, it does impact my life negatively and it makes things a lot harder. I think about the people who I know who are dyspraxic, and they're some of the most empathetic people I know, as well as creative, hardworking when they have like a solid space where they can just sit and be. And I don't think the internet, it's hard to find any evidence of that on the internet. And I find that really sad because it's just a massive misunderstanding of what it means to be dyspraxic, because when you are faced with so many challenges, you do have to think outside the box to be able to manage life. So like learning, I've come up with my own ways of doing it because I've just thought, this isn't working for me, what is going to work? And that is down to creativity. So I think it is really sad that list, it just lists all the challenges we face instead of like celebrating the assets that we have as well. Which is why I think I didn't relate to the diagnosis, or I questioned it when I first read about it, because I thought, yeah, but also like I know I'm different. I've been told that I'm different quite a lot growing up, but I don't see it as a bad thing. I've never really struggled socially. I've never really struggled in many aspects except for mainly organization and mainly organization. So yeah, I think there are a lot of things that are missing, and that's just celebrating what we do have.
Yeah, absolutely. And you made me think about, I think we get really good at problem solving because we have to. We have to get really strategic to work around what, our abilities and the things that we have to figure out. So I think we get really good at problem solving. Izzy, what would you like to add to the list?
So thinking about all the dyspraxic people that I know, I think you definitely learn that you have to be determined. I think it definitely results in like determined people, because it would be so easy to kind of like give up on doing things every time something goes wrong that like might not happen for other people. So I think definitely that. Thinking outside the box as well, like thinking a bit differently. And also like I don't know for sure, because I do have, it's like dyspraxia among like some other things that I have, but I feel like, so I don't know if it might be from something else, but I feel like sensory stuff, like I don't know if that's something other people experience, like, so I don't know whether that could be from like ADHD or autism or something, but with sensory stuff, like I definitely get overstimulated, and like certain feelings are like really not nice and can just kind of like shift what I'm able to do in one moment to like kind of what's possible like in another moment over something quite little. So definitely like resilience and determination.
Yeah, I get sensory overload, definitely. But also, whilst dyspraxia is apparently on the autistic spectrum, it's very closely connected to ADHD. So lots of very similar characteristics with ADHD. I just want to share one of the other things that was on the NHS website along with that list is that dyspraxia is 3 or 4 times higher in males than females. And I thought, is it though? And it made me think, there's a book, Invisible Women by Caroline Perez. I don't know if any of you have found it. And it talks about, she's about exposing data bias in a world designed for men. Things like, seatbelts don't protect women, little things like that. How things are designed with man as norm and women like, whatever. And it made me think, here we are for dyspraxic women. How is it true? I wonder if it's 3 or 4 times higher in males than females. What are your, or, certainly there's a lot of talk that girls are just getting better at masking it. What's your experience there, Is?
So masking, definitely, like I agree with that with you, but what I think is really interesting with dyspraxia is with most like neurodiversities or disabilities or stuff like that. You can Google the disability or the like whatever it is, and then you can Google like symptoms in women, and it will come up with different symptoms for women. But I've never been able to find dyspraxia symptoms in women, and usually what that is like a sign that it's not been around long enough, or people haven't gotten around to like looking into what the difference is between males and females. And like with autism, that was up until like in the 2000s, like 2006 or something like that, the criteria was only based off of male brain. So I think it's very possible, because there's only like, I haven't seen anything about in the female brain. So I think it's very possible like we are still being judged on the criteria based on male brain. So that would explain why a lot of women haven't like been diagnosed with it yet. They might have it, because I know a lot of people that aren't, like, you can't say it to them definitely, but you see them do something and they're like, yeah, dyspraxic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I see that all the time and just think, no, they'll figure it out. Megan, Nicola, any thoughts about female rates of dyspraxia not being, is it true? Do we think it's 3 or 4 times higher in males than females?
Well, anecdotally, I think I've observed an equal amount of male and female, but I think that women tend to be very, I think it makes you very flexible. You have to be very flexible as you grow up in school. As a young girl, you're constantly A, masking, and B, adapting. And I think it's a very, women adapt all the time. They're often the caregivers. They're often the people who weave through everybody else's needs. And I think that anything that you're dealing with, any condition like dyspraxia, is just something else you're weaving around everybody else's lives. So I think it is quite, it is easier, possibly easier for a woman to mask and adapt. And yeah, from my observations, I've seen, if anything, I've seen more women coping with it than men, but maybe that's just my personal experience.
Interesting. Megan?
In my personal experience, I've probably met equal numbers of men and women, but what I've found is more men are like formally diagnosed than women. I think the women who I know maybe 2 who are diagnosed, and other people have self-diagnosed because of the barriers to getting a diagnosis. But I thought it was really interesting what you said about symptoms being different in women, but not finding anything on the internet, because I think it will manifest differently because of masking and just being expected to adapt. But I don't think it's any higher in men. I think the standard is just men, which is sad, but I do not think it's higher in men. I think it's equal.
And that's just had me thinking, as I know an issue for me is hormone changes really affect me, and that, I think that, I don't know if that's the same for you, and if it needs it'd be good to explore that some. And when I started menopause, Nicola, we can hardly see you, there we are. When I started menopause, that change in hormone really knocked me about, and I went to the doctor and said, you know, I need to read something about dyspraxia and menopause. And of course, there's nothing. But actually, I think it's really important that we explore those. You know, I need my hormones to be on a fairly even keel, you know, because there's enough going on for me. And it really does impact me. Does anyone else have that experience?
Yes, I think that hormonally, if my hormones are out of balance, it's just the straw that breaks the camel's back. Yeah. Because I'm already struggling so much with keeping everything on track, that if my hormones go a little bit AWOL, I actually just everything falls down, definitely.
What about you two? You're the younger one, so me and Nicola are menopause age, and you two younger ones are having periods, how does it impact your dyspraxia?
So I don't know if it's impacted by dyspraxia, but I mean, they're really bad. So I don't know about you, Megan. Like, I have terrible cramps and my mood is awful. And
I have terrible cramps, and also for probably about a week before, I am constantly on the verge of tears. It does not take much to make me weep. It'll be, and it's embarrassing as well, but yeah,
the week before is really bad for me as well, which I haven't met many people that it's like that. It tends to be maybe like the day before and then the first couple of days you're on, but like the run up the week before is like so much worse than when I'm actually on it for me as well.
Yeah, because I find that it's the same for my skin. It's always the week before it gets really, really bad, and as soon as I come on, my skin just clears up, my mood is better, I stop crying. But it's a full week of just being really sensitive.
Do you notice it? Sorry, Izzy.
No, just saying, it sounds like it does impact us quite similarly.
Yeah.
I know I used to get the same. I've never thought about that PMC for a week, really bad. But now I'm aware that I get more kind of typically dyspraxic, if you like, fall over more, crash into things, smash more things, not even in temper, so just more my coordination's completely out.
That's interesting, because yesterday I broke a blender and I managed to smash this really nice cup whilst trying to save a butter dish, and it was just one of those like 5 minutes where I just thought, why has this happened? And I just felt so dyspraxic, and then I came on today and I was like, okay, maybe.
Yeah,
I'd never really thought about that, but
okay, yeah. And those are things that need to be talked about, I think. Whereas if we're only looking at males and dyspraxia, that'll never get talked about. Yeah.
Also, all those little things become so much more frustrating, like things that you could kind of let slide normally, when it's like one after another, breaking this and then this and then this, is even more frustrating. It kind of adds to it. And something else, sorry, it's not really about hormones as much, but I think like girls, especially when we're growing up, we get like taught a lot of like, we look after people and we care for people, and that's kind of like our role and stuff. And I think like it's important that I feel like with women especially, it could lead to like quite a lot of anxiety in people, like how I was saying before about like you think people think that you don't care, or someone gives you something and you lose it, or you make a mess of something. Like I think all of that leads to anxiety because of how we're like kind of, it does for me definitely, because of how we're kind of raised with that we're supposed to be helpful and be looking after people, and you're not supposed to be breaking things every 2 minutes. So I think that maybe could have been on that list as well.
Yeah,
I think that's a really good point, and certainly it lists anxiety as dyspraxia and anxiety go hand in hand, and I think that is a lot about being criticised as well, constantly criticised for not being good enough and clumsy and late. I was saying, I clapped my hands. I was absolutely delighted. All four of us here on time on the Zoom. That's fantastic. But yeah, in terms of just jumping around as I do, just in terms of strategies, I realised I would have an appointment in my diary. I don't know, 11 o'clock. In the days when we had to go places rather than be on Zoom. And so 11 o'clock was in my head, and I could never be there on time because like 11 o'clock was when I would set out, and I couldn't figure it out. And I had to develop a strategy like, okay, if I've got to be there at 11, that means I've got to do that and that and that and that, which means I have to leave at 10:30, which means I've got to have my bag ready by 10:20. I've got to find my keys at 10, and things like that, which is, great goal setting. But, and I don't even know how I got onto that. There you go. But yeah, how did I get onto that? No, I don't.
I'm the same. From that, I run a diary, and I have to make appointments for people who come in to see me, and I have to make appointments for all different things. And I suffer from ridiculous amount of anxiety running that diary. I can't ever be comfortable with it. I'm constantly worrying about it. And I don't know how to counteract that. When I see my diary for that day, that just gives me stress, worrying that I'm going to miss, forget, arrive at the wrong place, you know. And I think often neurotypical people can just look at their diary and think, great, it's all written down, I'll just follow that.
Oh, that's really hard, Nicola. I think, yeah. I don't think I've ever heard that said before, but I absolutely get it. Yeah. That, like, we're going to get it wrong or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I try not to be late. So I often turn up ridiculously early.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm teaching for the Growing Club, I always turn up an hour early. I don't need to, but I can't get out of that because I'm so concerned that my disorganization will lead to me not arriving on time, that I have to turn up an hour early, with a big pile of papers that are my thoughts for the day. And yeah, I can't remember thinking, oh great, I've got a day that I'm completely in control of and not feeling anxious that I'm going to mess it up, because I know I'm deeply inherently disorganized.
Yeah, that the anxiety there, that's really awful. Absolutely. And is that, can you, Isabella, Megan, can you relate to that?
Yeah. Yes. Massively.
Yes.
Massively relate to that. I'm constantly scared that I'm missing something. I have this deep-rooted fear that I am not there. I don't know where there is, but I'm not there. And it's just, I think it comes from things like realizing I've got an assignment in a week, but I haven't written it down, so I have no idea, so I have to do it all in a week, and I just think, why have I done this again? Or I've missed a doctor's appointment, and I just think, why didn't I write it down? But I probably wrote it down on like a loose piece of paper and put it down somewhere and thought, I've never seen it again. So now I have to have everything. Honestly, starting a diary, starting a bullet journal has been the best thing that I've ever done, because everything is in one book. It's in a system that makes sense to me, and I've just learned to work with it. But yeah,
That thing, what did you say? What were your words? Something like, I'm not there or something. Yeah, there's somewhere you're meant to be that you don't. Yeah, God, I have that feeling. Wow. Isabella, does that ring true for you?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Again, definitely. And I always, every time I leave anywhere, I just have this feeling in my head like I forgot something really important, like every time. So I'm just, even if I haven't, it's just like, oh, the whole way there, like, what's it gonna be? And I have terrible anxiety with getting trains, and if they have a change, I can't do it on my own. I have to be with another person if there's a change on the train, because like the anxiety that I'm not gonna get off at the change, or that I'm gonna miss the change, like, is enough that I just won't get off the train. Like, I'll just go into like meltdown. Like, I get going to different cities on buses or trains, anything I absolutely cannot stand, because of the kind of like the whole way there, I'm like, I'm gonna miss it, and then I get there and it's like someone's gonna, I hate that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I travel by train a lot because I prefer it. When they run, I prefer it to driving. But yeah, I don't think I realized that I also get anxiety around that. And I think I do. I think I love traveling by train, but actually you're right. Like, am I going to miss my train? Am I on the right train? And on airplanes, am I on the right airplane? Like, am I heading to Australia right now? Yeah. Oh, okay. So there, for me, what I'm hearing and what resonates for me is always being wrong. Oh no, we've lost Izzy. I hope she comes back. Always being wrong. And some of that for me is about, as an employee, I did not get the roles. That's why I'm self-employed. I did not get the roles. I did not understand the roles. I knew there was always something that or I thought there was something I'd missed. Yeah, oh gosh, that's been so interesting to talk about that. Anything else on that for you, Nicola?
No, but I really resonate with you saying this belief that you're wrong, because the world seems so together. I have a very deep-seated belief that I'm probably the one who's in the wrong in this system, and how can I mitigate that or keep it quiet? And it's only in the last few years that I've started to try and bring self-compassion in and say, to say to myself, stop believing that you're wrong and they're right, we're just different. And I have to use that as a bit of a mantra to myself when I get involved in very organized systems. You know, you don't I say to myself, don't keep telling yourself you're wrong, you're just different.
That is so important. I don't think I'd realised until we started talking about this just how massive that is. Any more thoughts from you on that, Megan?
I think it's really easy to get bogged down when mistakes start to pile up, and it can be really, really difficult to start practicing self-compassion. I think it's something that you have to, well, I have to try and really actively do. And what's helped me is just talking about it with other people who are neurodivergent. Because before then, it's easy to feel really lonely in this like chaotic world where people seem to know what they're doing, and it's always me who feels like they're in the wrong, because I usually am. Not the wrong in like morally, like just organizationally. But talking to people and them just saying, oh, it's fine, you're okay. You're okay. It's just helped me more than anything else, really. Just knowing that me fundamentally, I'm fine. I'm like a good person. It's just sometimes we live in a world that's not built for us. And it's really hard to then navigate that. And we have to make our own ways of doing that.
But if we go back to the thing, neurodiversity just means someone who thinks differently to the majority. Actually, surely we're all neurodiverse. We all think, okay, some people just follow, but maybe they do that because it's easier. I don't know, but maybe we're all neurodiverse and we're just not willing to celebrate that. Oh, it's his back, yay. And so that gets me thinking about issues in the workplace or in education. Hi, Izzy, we were just talking about suddenly a realization that we all live almost permanently thinking we're wrong. And I know I've said that before. Yeah, so just that realization that actually we're all thinking that we've got it wrong. Is that, does that come up for you?
Definitely, I think I definitely get things confused. Again, like I'm not 100, oh no. So I get memories confused. And I get confused. And again, like, I don't know if this is dyspraxia, but I get confused with my dreams and what's happened. So I will like go to someone thinking that we've had a conversation and start talking to them about it. And then, you know, after like 30 seconds, then being like, what are you talking about? Then it comes back to me. I don't know if that's like dyspraxia, but yeah, I do have a feeling of not kind of trusting myself. And I guess thinking like having an instinct that to check with someone before I do anything. Like I definitely do that, and I've definitely like at work, not working with you guys, working in kitchens, chefing, I've definitely had it where people will like make you feel like really, really small for wanting to confirm something, which obviously like I know you don't want to peck people's head while you're working, but like people shouldn't, I really don't think that people should make you feel like an idiot for confirming something, even if it does seem really obvious. And I've always been like that. I remember being like that as a kid, like even if like the rules of something had been explained, it would be like, I need it one more time.
Yeah.
And that's irritating to people, which obviously then in turn like irritates me as well. But it's just one of those things, isn't it?
That's interesting. When you fell off the Zoom, I was just saying, as an employee, I didn't understand the rules, and that's one that big things for me about going self-employed. Being at office politics or whatever, I always felt I didn't understand the rules, and I hated that. So in the end, just kind of did my own thing anyway. But so what would we like to see? So if we think about the workplace and education, without naming names if it's horrible, obviously name names if something good happens. What challenges, can you think of any specific challenges, and or what can we do to change that? If we were going to recommend things that employers or education institutions might put in place, what might those be? Shall I pick on someone, or are you going to jump in?
I think if someone is, I think this is really obvious, but I think if someone is diagnosed with something, then you then can't like punish them and give them detentions like in school for like symptoms of what they've been diagnosed with. Like that sounds really obvious, but like I'm pretty sure like that still happens all the time. And in work as well, having like disciplinaries because of things that like they literally know is a symptom of something that you've been diagnosed with. Like that's insane.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I remember parents' evenings where they'd go, she's really disorganized. Yes, that's right. Yes, she's dyspraxic. It's by definition. Yeah. But yeah, just you're right, being punished for who we are. Yeah, that's too harsh. Megan, Nicola, what do you want to see changed? What can we change?
Just being a bit more compassionate and a bit more patient with maybe trying to understand. If they don't want to read about it, then at least listening to your own personal experiences. I don't think it should be all on people who have dyspraxia to tell employers what they should know, but I think there's so little understanding that it might have to be that way. And when you do, just to listen and to believe that person. Like if they need a break, or they need to just ask something, or just reaffirm something, or just to have that patience, I think would make a massive difference, because otherwise it's easy to get, I've found I've got overwhelmed in the past, and when I get overwhelmed, I have very little space to think about anything else, especially carrying on working. So I think that would help. Just if someone's getting overwhelmed, just allow them to kind of step out for a bit and just collect themselves, and then come back in and pick up wherever they were, or just being able to ask, oh, is this what they wanted, or did you hear them, and just little things like that.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, Nicola,
I'd like
sorry.
to pick on that, because I think explaining to people who have no idea what dyspraxia is a great idea, and making sure we include things like, I might fall into overwhelm, and if I feel I'm heading that way, I need to be able to explain to you that that's about to happen, and I need a strategy for me to then be able to retreat and find myself again. So, and I think that a lot of people don't understand. I often have to explain to people things like, they'll ask me to predict the future and to put steps in place, and I can't do that. And I have to say, I have a complete inability to completely prepare for something in the future and to foresee all the things that might or might not go wrong. I can't do that, and I have to sometimes explain to people that I can't do that. I find I spend enough energy trying to cope with all the things that are happening to me right now, that the future is just way beyond my capacity. And so I think explanation, I think before it happens, is so much better than when it's happening, to be able to sit down and say, these things do happen to me, and I'm going to come to you if they're about to happen to me and I'm going to explain it. I think it sounds so obvious, but I think I spent most of my life not doing that. And then just thinking, I know I'm in overwhelm, but I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm just going to try and get on with it. And having the confidence to warn people that that does happen and that may happen. And if so, this is what I'd like to happen, is just absolutely liberating. I can't walk into a restaurant where all the chairs squeak and the speakers are right above me and the TV screen's on. And I used to do it and sit there thinking, I can't speak, I'm so stressed, the amount of things that are hitting me. And now I walk in and I go, I can't go here, I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to leave straight away. You know, and it's just having the confidence to acknowledge that in yourself and not to think, I'm just going to put up with it. I'm going to communicate my needs to whoever I'm with.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And that does take confidence to be able to do that. And it just made me think, there used to be a worker that would just, I'd walk in and she'd just bombard me with, like, it felt like 100 things. And no matter how often I said, I can only take in one piece of information at a time. Which piece of information do you want me to have right now? And she never got it. But what I'm loving about our office team at the moment is, and it isn't that everyone in the Growing Club, well, or maybe we are all neurodiverse, we probably are. But our office team are understanding, like, that person likes communicating that way. Okay, that person needs that. And they're just taking that on board. And I love that. And I do think a lot of that is because I'm dyspraxic. So working with me is enable, and me saying, right, this is what is going to happen, this is what I need, and work with me is enable them to think about other people. But they're, you know, that isn't hard if you care about your team and get to know them and start understanding, okay, that's what we need to do to ensure that person has the information they need. I think that's really helpful. Anything else? Any other experiences you had that you'd like to see changed?
Can I just say about the communication? I think, like, in work, especially, and in school as well, like education places as well, like, I think it's really good to, like, find out from people, especially when, like, we are neurodiverse, like, how you like to communicate and how you like to be communicated with, because some things, like you say, like, it's just not going to compute, and that's just really pointless in a workplace. Like, that's not helping anyone. So actually having, like, that conversation with people, because also, like, the way that I communicate with people, sometimes people find that really frustrating because I, like, lay out really unnecessary detail, because that's how I like to be spoke to. Like, I like everything being laid out really, really, really clearly, but other people, like, don't want that. So I think if you can, like, actually have a conversation with people and, like, see how it's best to communicate with them, and that would also be good. And I was thinking before we were talking, maybe like a 45-minute allowance for, like, your neurodiverse people. So throughout your work week, if they turn up 15 minutes late one day, 15 minutes late another day, maybe you, like, allow them that little kind of, like, allowance, that little gap, because you know what they're kind of like.
Yeah, really, really important tips. Yeah. And that just made me think something else that fell straight. Oh yeah, I know. So as the boss, I will now say, if you send me a long email, I won't read it. So I will read the first line. If the information isn't there, I'm not going to read the rest of it. And you know, things like that. Okay, I'm the boss, so I can, but actually it enables people to think, oh, maybe there are other people that don't read. I will not read a long email. And I now tell everyone that wants to communicate with me that if there's a lot of information, you must at very least bullet point it. So many people send an email and the important information is at the very end. Like, no, if it's important, put it at the top. So the last thing I'm going to do before we finish is, interestingly, on the internet was a thing, what are good jobs for dyspraxics? and there was care work, learning support, and working with animals. All very worthy jobs. However, I thought we might raise aspirations a little more. What do you think is a good job for someone with someone dyspraxic? Nicola, what do you think might be a good job?
Being an entrepreneur is perfect for someone who's dyspraxic, as long as you've got a team around you, as long as you've got someone to pick up your pieces in the things you will never be able to do effectively. A great admin support and people around you who make you, so you make a complete team. I can't think of anything better than running your own company, running with your dreams, and actually moving from shame about what the world might see as your deficits, moving it to pride and just saying, these are the ways, these are the gifts I've got for the world, and I do have a backup of people around me to pick up all the pieces that I can't do. So yeah, definitely running your own company and going with your own dreams and your own way of thinking and just bringing it to fruition.
I love it. Thank you. Megan.
So I, in my experience, dyspraxic people who are in my life have some of the biggest ideas I know of anyone. Like I think because we think outside the box, there's no one kind of there to tell us, oh, you can't do that. Because I believe if I set my mind to something, I will find a way to get there. I think having people around me to say, right, this you can do this, but have you considered how this might impact you? Not to say that you can't do it, just to make you aware of some of the difficulties that you might face. I think that's helpful in terms of dyspraxic friendly jobs. So the more I think about it and the more I think about kind of planning, any kind of planning, I think there should be more neurodiverse people in planning. I want to go into city planning, so that's what I'm thinking, because a lot of the time people don't speak to other people, and I think dyspraxic people with that empathy and that like wanting to understand why things are the way that they are, we could do great things in that area just by wanting to understand things, like not understanding the sexism, homophobia, things like that, racism. I don't understand why things have just planned to, I don't know, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but like, you know, when you just really don't understand something and you think this is a better way that this could be managed, I really think there just needs to be more dyspraxic people who are just in jobs where you can like structure things, if that makes sense.
So more decision makers.
Yes, yeah, more decision makers should be dyspraxic, because I think they're more, in my experience, more likely to think about the wider implications of the decisions that they're making, and that whole holistic idea of how this will impact everyone, not just people who are able.
Brilliant, thank you. And Isabella, what do you think dyspraxic people could be when they grow up?
So definitely 100% decision makers, like completely agree. You got the thinking outside the box, like we're creative, we're very empathetic, like 100%, like I think that's amazing. And then again, like Nicola, like should be self-employed, like running businesses, shouldn't have a boss, definitely. Like we should be in control of, like, because we know our strengths very clearly. It seems like with us guys definitely as well, we know our strengths and we know our like challenges, so then we're able to delegate and like organize in that way, where like the organization means that we don't have to do the difficult kind of organization. So definitely agree, like being your own boss as well, and like anything creative where I think you've got some kind of like outlet from what you're doing, and where you can take what's in your head and make that kind of like a reality.
Thank you. I certainly didn't understand why creatives were not on that list. All the dyspraxic people I know are really creative. For me, whenever I'm a trainer, whenever I'm delivering training to new people, I say I'm dyspraxic. I explain briefly what that might look like in the session. I always say, but I'm a genius, so don't worry about it. But at the end, I was running this training once to a group I didn't know. At the end, a woman came up to me and said, "Did you say you're dyspraxic?" Yes. She said, "My niece is dyspraxic. She would never be able to do what you've just done." I said, "How old is she?" 13. Like, yeah, at 13, I couldn't do this either. Like, that idea that, you know, that lack of understanding that actually maybe we develop skills as we, you know, go along in life, and that maybe we could work to those. Okay, I have loved that. Thank you so much for giving your time for this. Is there anything I've forgotten? Any last thoughts you want to throw in there?
I've got one. So I don't know about the rest of you, but I now take massive issue with anyone who tells me to lower my expectations in life. I always see it as like an attack on my abilities. And I know some people mean it really well if they're like, oh, they don't want me to get hurt if I get disappointed by something not working out. So they're telling me to lower my expectations. But I just wanted to throw that out to a room full of dyspraxics to see if it was something that's maybe like come from being told that I can't do things when I was younger because of X, Y, and Z or whatever it is. But I hate being told to lower my expectations. Really, really I hate it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. It made me laugh. I remember being in a relationship once, and a female friend said to me, "You should lower your expectations about this guy." I thought, really? Is that what I should do? So no, why would we? Why would we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I hate it when people suggest stuff like that, or if someone if someone meets you and asks about what you do and then kind of like, I don't know, it must be because of what you say, Megan, because of people being like critical and saying like, oh, well, you can't do that, you couldn't be any good at that, could you? Like, say you do something like, oh, well, you couldn't be any good at that, could you? Like, I know you. Like, if someone had asked me like what I do, and I'll be like, oh, I'm a chef and do this, and they're like, are you any good at it? And it's like, why are you even asking me that? Do you know what I mean? Like, I take it like, just piss off, do you know what I mean? Like, of course I'm gonna hit, like, why are you even asking me that? Do you know what I mean? But definitely like anything like lower your expectations, like, oh, you couldn't be good at that, could you? Anything like that, like, I take that very personally as well.
No, aim for as high as you want. Any thoughts from you, Nicola, on that from Megan?
No, but I agree that sometimes people think, well, she's so chaotic, she probably doesn't get anywhere and goes around in circles. And actually, that's not true. I end up doing all the things I've ever wanted to do, just in a different way.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Go for what you want and build a good team around you that balance out. So like our office team just fill in all my gaps. Amazing. Yeah. No, definitely go for it. And what I have really loved about today is having the two generations here. That's been really beautiful for me. Thank you so much. There's probably something I've forgotten, but we've had over an hour now, and I don't want to keep you any longer. But thank you. But I am going to show this. If you've got a little one, neurodiverse, this lovely book, You're So Clumsy, Charlie, is absolutely beautiful. Get them that. Okay. Lots of love to you all, and thank you everyone that's watching. Do get in contact with us if you have any questions, and I'm sure we're all for hire at a very high cost if you'd like us to come in to your organization and explain more to you. Lots of love.